Year three, week two, statement Saturday. Let's get into another DNS address. Week two is complete, and this week, several teams stopped asking for respect and started taking it. Georgia Southern knocks off number four, Oregon. Georgia Tech shuts down and shuts out number 11, Colorado. Sorry. Mississippi State beats number 16 Duke. Old Dominion puts up 52. Texas State puts up 44. South Florida finally gets into the win column. And Troy, well, we need to talk about that injury. Let's get into it. Our headline of the week, though, is Georgia Southern takes down number four Oregon. 1 week after opening the season against number one Oklahoma, Georgia Southern came home and got number four Oregon. And this time, the Eagles finished the job. Georgia Southern wins 42-38. KJ Towers was sharp, 22 of 29, 241 in the air, one passing touchdown, one rushing touchdown. Would get rushed for 89 yards in the score. Todd added 85 more. Jeremiah Ware had a breakout performance of the day, 12 receptions, 131 yards, one touchdown. Oregon made it interesting, very interesting. Mike linebacker Craig Ham returned an interception, 64 yards for a touchdown. But Georgia Southern stayed composed. The defense picked off two passes of their own when the clock hit zero. The Eagles had one of the biggest wins in the country. Georgia Southern improves to 1-1. And next week, number 7 LSU. So we go from number 1 Oklahoma to number 4 Oregon to number 7 LSU. Schedule's absolutely ridiculous, but after this win, Georgia Southern knows it can hang with anybody. Georgia Tech erases number 11 Colorado. Georgia Tech did not just beat number 11 Colorado, they shut them out 42-0. That is a ranked team. 0 points. Klutz completed 13 of 16 passes for 156 and 2 touchdowns. Mason added another passing touchdown. Wills rushed for 71 yards on the score. The offense was efficient. The defense was dominant. Had 6 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and interception. And right guard Noah Carter himself had 3.5 of those sacks. That was a long afternoon for an offensive tackle. Then Wrotto added a 97-yard kickoff return touchdown. Georgia Tech improves to 2-0. They're now moving up to number 5. Next, Pittsburgh comes to Atlanta. Georgia Tech has won its first 2 games with a combined score of 119-3. That is not a typo. Old Dominion's backfield goes off. Old Dominion beats Appalachian State 52-38, and the running backs were in complete control from the beginning. John Bruello had 29 carries, 223 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5 receptions also for 46 yards. That's 269 from scrimmage. Then Timmons decided that apparently was not enough, so he added 11 carries for 176 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, and he had a 97-yard kickoff return touchdown. So beyond those two, they had 399 rushing, 5 rushing touchdowns, and a kickoff return touchdown. That's absurd. Ricky Burns threw a touchdown but was intercepted twice. Christopher Warren caught 6 passes for 85 yards in the score. The defense was added 2 interceptions and forced a fumble. Old Dominion improves to 2-0, and now number 8 Ole Miss is coming to town. That game just got very interesting. Mississippi State moves to 2-0. Coach Will E. Nelson start at Mississippi State continues. The Bulldogs beat number 16 Duke 17-14. It wasn't pretty, but it counts. Coolidge threw for 253 and 2 touchdowns. He also threw 3 interceptions. So once again, Mississippi State is making life harder than it needs to be. But Peterkin was excellent. He had 10 receptions for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cooper Crosby added 96 rushing yards and 59 receiving yards. The defense was able to record 3 sacks and an interception. Mississippi State improves to 2-0. One of those wins now comes against a ranked opponent. Next, at Memphis, not flashy, just winning. Texas State is 2-0. Texas State followed up a ranked road win at USC with a demolish of UTSA. The final was 45-7, and the story was DeMarcus Compton. 33 carries, 172 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Yes, I said 5. Risling threw for 195. Crow caught 8 passes for 106. The defense was able to record 3 sacks, an interception, and a forced fumble. Texas State is now 2-0, and this is already a very different start from last year. Next, at UTEP. South Florida finally gets one. After starting 0-2, South Florida needed a response. They got one. The Bulls beat UCF 45-27. Lewis threw for 245 and 3 touchdowns. He did still throw 2 interceptions, so the turnover issue is not completely gone, but it was much better. Howard rushed for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wilder added 85. Terry Sheldon had a massive game, 12 receptions, 179 yards, 2 touchdowns, and C.J. Sadler added a 96-yard kickoff return touchdown. South Florida improves to 1-2. They're on a bye week next week, and honestly, that may be exactly what they needed. Reset, clean up the turnovers, then start building. Sacramento State gets number 1 this week. They went on the road again, beat Toledo 38-26. Sam Babcock threw for 247 and 2 touchdowns. He did throw 4 interceptions, though, so this game was much closer to chaos than the final score suggested. Godley rushed for 121 yards and a touchdown. Rainey added 108 yards and 2 scores. Dorian Calvin caught 2 touchdown passes. The defense was able to record 4 sacks, an interception, and 2 forced fumbles. Sacramento State improves to 1-1. Next, at Vanderbilt. Army starts with a shutout. Army finally opened year 3, and it did with defense. Army beats Temple 12-0. Bison Luter threw for 127 and a touchdown. Godspeed Nawari rushed for 130. Daniel Bray added 62 rushing yards and 73 receiving yards with a touchdown. The defense, you may ask? 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, a safety, and a shutout. Army starts 1-0. They're on a bye week again next week. It's not a bad way to open a season. UAB drops to 0-2. UAB went into number 14 Boise State and lost 52-38. There were positives. James Ingram rushed for 130 yards and touchdown. Burndiggy rushed for 100 yards, had 2 rushing touchdowns, 46 receiving yards, and another score. That's 4 total touchdowns from the backfield duo. That's a good thing. But Nate Rogers threw 4 interceptions and was sacked 8 times. 8. That's a protection problem. Walker did provide a defensive touchdown with a 41-yard returned fumble, but UAB falls 0-2. Next, Georgia State comes to town. That one feels important. About that Troy injury. Troy went to number 3 Ohio State, and the result was ugly. Ohio State wins 41-3. But we need to talk about the injury that was reported by Coach Burnett. He went 0-1 and left the game, and now he's not even listed on the injury report. Interesting. Very interesting. Miles Godley, though, came in and went 13 for 31 for 108 and an interception. The offense never got going. A.C. Walters rushed for 52 yards. White added 60 receiving yards. Defensively, Zeke Robinson forced a fumble and recovered 2, but Troy never threatened. After opening with wins against Clemson and Alabama, the Trojans got brought back down to earth, and they fall to 2-1. Now, there is a bye week next week for them, so probably a good time to determine how injured Waldrop was. We'll see. Our stock-ups this week, Georgia Southern, you lose at number 1 to Oklahoma and then beat number 4 Oregon. That's how you respond. Georgia Tech, 119 points scored, 3 allowed, 2 games. This team looks terrifying again. Old Dominion, Varela still looks like Varela. And Timmons is adding another explosive dynamic. Texas State, 2-0, ranked win, then 38-point blowout. Strong start. Our need more film of the week. Sacramento State's turnovers, 4 interceptions. You can survive that against Toledo. You can't count on surviving against better teams, though. Mississippi State's turnovers, also 3 interceptions. The Bulldogs are 2-0, but they're playing with fire. And UAB's pass protection, 8 sacks allowed. That can't continue. Point blank. Week 2 honors. Our offensive player of the week is DeMarcus Compton from Texas State. 33 carries, 172 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's not subtle. That's domination. Our defensive player of the week is Noah Carter from Georgia Tech. 3.5 sacks and a 42-0 shutout of number 11 Colorado. That's a game wrecker. Our Built Not Given award this week goes to Georgia Southern. Because the schedule could have broken them early, number 1 Oklahoma, then number 4 Oregon. And falling in week 1, Georgia Southern came home and beat a top 5 team. This is exactly what this award is for. No excuses, no feeling sorry for yourself. Respond. Georgia Southern did Built Not Given this week. Our week 3 look ahead. The ranked games keep coming. We love it. We love to see it. Georgia Southern at number 7 LSU. Oklahoma, Oregon, LSU, of course. Number 8 Ole Miss at Old Dominion. Old Dominion's 2-0. Now comes the biggest test yet. Pittsburgh at number 5 Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has outscored their opponents 119-3. Can Pittsburgh finally slow them down? Mississippi State at Memphis. The Bulldogs are 2-0. Can they clean up the turnovers and stay perfect? Texas State at UTEP. They look to get a 3-0 start. Sacramento State at Vanderbilt. The Hornets try to build off win number 1. Georgia State at UAB. UAB's 0-2. Feels like a get-right game. South Florida, Troy, and Army on our buys. Week 2's delivered some statements. Georgia Southern beat number 4 Oregon. Georgia Tech shut out number 11 Colorado. Old Dominion ran wild. Mississippi State and Texas State moved to 2-0. South Florida finally got into the win column. And next week, Georgia Southern gets another top 10 opponent. Old Dominion gets a top 10 opponent in number 8 Ole Miss. Georgia Tech keeps rolling. The season is starting to take shape, and some of these teams are starting to look very dangerous. In the Department of Natural Selection, you select, we collect, Built, Not Given.